Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Mike Gray.
Michael Gray is with us today. We normally have Steve Lacy with us, but Steve is actually a little bit under the weather. He's got a migraine, so those can be really painful. Do you ever have migraines, Michael?
Oh, yeah, man. I had a season where I ended up in the hospital several times.
Wow, really?
Bad.
Wow. I need to probably make sure my audio is good here. We're going to talk about audio today, and while we're doing that, I need to adjust my microphone.
Have good audio.
So I sound better.
Bad audio.
Yeah, well,
audio and then...
exactly. Yeah. So the opening statement I made was I really believe that very importantly, and that is that your audio quality, I think it's probably more important than your video quality when it comes to streaming video. So Michael and I are going to talk about that today. And in case you don't know, Michael's been with us since March. Michael and I go way back. Michael has an extensive history and experience when it comes to not just streaming video, but pastoral work. He was an executive pastor for many years, actually at the church I actually met you before I came back to Tucson, but I met you in Kansas when you came out with Jeff. And so Michael is a great asset to us here at streamingchurch.tv. So let's talk a little bit about audio. Michael and I are very familiar with audio struggles, not just online, but even at churches. I can remember staff meetings we had together where we weren't excited about the audio mix in our new facility. And that's no takeaway. We got some great people that I think are still there that do a great job with audio, but the facility was new, and the layout and the structure of the facility and the worship center made it very difficult for audio. And that was just in the house, so to speak. But then actually the audio that we mixed online with streaming video was actually pretty good, and with Tony and Mark Small. So audio problems are very common for churches, but again, if you get nothing out of what we're going to say here in the next 25 minutes, just remember this: audio is just as important, or in my words, probably more important than your video when it comes to streaming video, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So common problems. Audio's too quiet. Audio has lots of background noise. That's a very common problem. There can be what I call the electronic noise, the buzz and the hum, which can be annoying.
The click. Buzz, hum, click, pop.
Background stuff. Muddy voices are muddy, or you can't understand them.
Or it's too loud and overdriven.
Yeah, and then when it comes to music, if you're trying to mix music during your live stream, your band or whatever it is you're using, choir, instruments, voices, it can be a challenge. We understand that. It's a challenge. By the way, I don't know about you, Mike, but I watch a certain local news station here in town occasionally, and we both know one of the anchors there. And they are always having audio issues. It's a joke. And I almost feel like texting Dan or tweeting Dan going, Dan, what's going on here? This is a common problem. They have lots of audio issues. And so it just kind of takes away from everything. So whether you're doing a newscast or a streaming video. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how we can help people with some solutions here. To audio struggles that people have. What would be the first thing we might want to suggest, Michael?
We might want to invest in high quality equipment. Doesn't mean expensive, but high quality, good equipment.
All right. Thanks for reading your notes. So, it doesn't have to be overly expensive, but you want to really look at some good equipment. And look, there's lots of stuff out there. We're not going to spend a lot of time directing you to certain brands. If you want some help, we can certainly do that later. You can send us an email or something. But you want to be able to really find some good equipment. And there's different things you could use, especially for somebody that's speaking. Microphones, quality microphones, and having them close to the person speaking. Another one, which is very common, is lavalier microphones. They're not really, in my opinion, they're not the best choice. unless you get really expensive lavaliers, because this is the nature of it. From my experience, is they kind of hang down. You know, you try to pin them on your collar or somewhere on your shirt, and they're not the best, but they could be okay if you're able to mix it correctly and you're able to really get a good lavalier. You could probably get by with that.
And you mentioned some of the downfalls of a lavalier. They're usually a moderately omnidirectional mic, and they pick up everything.
Right.
So if somebody's coughing in the front row, or a baby's crying, or there are your AC kicks on, and it picks up all of those ambient sounds versus a directional mic, and that's typically what the more expensive ones are. Will only catch something in the direction it's pointed, and makes a huge difference in a presentation, because you've got your best stuff and you're delivering the best talk you've ever given in your life, and suddenly you go back and listen to it and you're like, what is all of that clutter sound in the background?
Yep. Absolutely. And of course, if you're streaming live, people get that as well. And so it's important to really look at these things and kind of test them out. And so the lavalier it's a workable thing, but it's not the best thing. And then, as you were saying, what might be better is if you had some kind of a gooseneck podium mic, perhaps, if that's what you have, that's pointing with a directional mic, pointing like right now. I have a gooseneck. I guess you call this a gooseneck if you're watching on video. This mic is actually, it picks up a lot of stuff, which is not ideal for what we're doing here. Like you mentioned, AC kicking in. My AC is going to kick in here probably any moment because it's just hot here in Tucson. And
well, it'll be fun because people can taunt you for having ambient sound in a podcast about sound.
Yeah, exactly. And then I actually have a fountain in here too, which, you know, Steve and you have, well, maybe you haven't complained about it. Steve has. It makes him want to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I have to control my urge.
I'm sorry. Well, I should have unplugged it. It's actually going, but it's not too loud right now. So yeah, those kind of things I think are important to really keep an eye on the audio. What's best, and I have found this from experience myself, and I think you have too, is if you have some kind of a headset mic that I don't even know what you call them, but a head-worn microphone that maybe goes around your ear and then comes out to your mouthpiece. That is, I think, one of the best uses, because you can, the microphone's going to be, you can adjust it so it's consistent. You put it in the right place. You do a sound check, and I'm going to say this over and over again during this podcast. Make sure you always do sound checks, multiple sound checks before you go live. But a headpiece that you can, a quality one. Now, you know, the one I looked at, I think I paid $200 for the one at my church, maybe 300. So it ain't cheap. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is the quality. However, those are mostly wireless.
Yes.
And so I know this from Phil, you will remember as well.
Yeah.
If you have a great sound guy, he will hand you a new battery before every service you ever walk up.
Because very good point.
How many times have you gotten halfway? I know I'm going in a different topic, but it's a wireless mic. And if the power goes out, so does your sound. How many times did somebody run up on stage and hand a battery? Oh yeah, here's a battery for that.
Yeah, fresh batteries, and that's a really good point, Michael. And that we did that even after I left your church and was working with mine part time. We did the same thing. We made sure that there was always fresh batteries in that lavalier, not lavalier, but in that headset mic. And because there's nothing worse than you're talking, and usually a lot of times with batteries start to go, you get a bunch of distortion. Many times there's distortion, and then everybody's wondering like what's going on. The sound guy is trying to figure it out, and then it dawns on somebody, maybe we need to change the battery. And so lots of times you'll be frustrated with that. But again, a head-worn deal, and they make some of these really nice ones that are very thin, and you can hardly tell that you're wearing them. You know, and there's ways to do that. All right. So as we talk about solutions here to audio and why audio is so important to streaming video and really anything you do, the second thing I think we can probably move on to would be monitoring your audio, and not just in-house, but also on the internet. So we're talking primarily here in the context of streaming video. So there's the way I would approach it, and maybe you might approach it a little differently, but I would always monitor, make sure I have a close ear on what's going on in the house with a headset at times to make sure that signal's clear, and then move into the internet. And that's a little more of a challenge because when you're streaming, you're always going to have a little bit of a delay between, what's live in the facility and what's going on the internet. I mean, the internet standard, the industry standard is usually 30 to 60 seconds, 30 to 40 seconds, maybe. HLS streaming, that's the way it is. It used to be years ago with Flash, is about 3 or 4 seconds at the most. But so you are going to have a delay. But again, what you want to listen for, if you're monitoring, I should say, if you're a sound guy, you want to really listen to that and the clarity of it. Is it clear? Is it overdriven? Is it underdriven? Is it the right mix? And again, this is a little bit of a challenge because, you have the delay, and there's actually better ways to even mix this, which I guess we can get into here. I remember one of the things that you guys had set up at your church when I was there was it was an isolator. It was an audio isolator, which I found really fascinating. And I don't know if I can explain it. I know Mark Small explained it to us one time a couple of years ago when we did this. But your microphones were being separated, so you had a line going to your isolator that was eventually would get online. But then you also had a signal going to your house, to your console where you were mixing things.
Yeah.
And so the way we did it at Alive, if I remember right, at least at one point, was your house mix guy was concentrating on what's going on in the auditorium, but then you had another person in another room that was concentrating on what's going on online, what's going on the internet. And that isolator separated the signals. It separated the signals.
Patch bay. It was a patch bay to where every mic came in, and then there was 2 full soundboards. And because if you've done this for very long, you'll discover that a great house mix does not go to the internet very well.
That's right. Yeah.
Because in the house, because of acoustics and because of everything else that you're dealing with, as you make that mix, you get it perfect there. If you just send that signal to the internet, especially if you're talking about music, it will not sound great. People come across louder, instruments come across louder. So if you don't remix that to a certain extent, then your church online experience as far as sound can be not great. Now you can pare that down to where you can have just vocals and just instruments and just the drums, like groups, smaller groups that you send over, or you can make it line for line to where your church online person can literally control 100% of the sound by themselves.
Yeah. And there may be some people that might think, oh, isolator, oh my goodness, now what am I going to do? There's, another alternative to that, which is probably not as good, but could help. And that would be, if you're going to take a signal out of your mixer, there's an out. All of them have some kind of an out port. You could take that signal and you could put it in another maybe small mixer, smaller mixer, and with headphones where you're monitoring. Again, a little tricky, but doable. You monitor what's going into that small mixer, but you also monitor what's going on live online, which again is that 30 to 60 second delay. That's better than a sharp stick in the eye. At least you could, even if you don't have an isolator, you can still work with that a little bit, and you can adjust it and try to make it a little better by using another mixer coming out of the big mixer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I always struggled with my web sound guys was to get them to listen to it both ways, and to be set up to where they're listening to it before it goes to the web and after it goes to the web, because the processing that happens in web audio and video changes the sound. So it's going to sound different once it's actually out to the internet. And so you need to know and so it is a little more tough. I mean, guys that can do web sound are really highly skilled in multitask, because you're having to mix something that you're not going to hear for 30 to 60 seconds. So you're mixing at a delay. And so you don't ever want to make giant changes. You want to make micro changes and then know what the delay is. So you suddenly push the drums up and I didn't hear anything, and then you push it up some more and some more and some more, and suddenly you're pounding in everybody's ears when it finally kicks in and catches up.
Yeah, 30 seconds
it's a
later.
Fine art. It's a fine art. It's not impossible, and Phil's right. You definitely have to have maybe some EQ remixing tools and a small micro board going to your web. Or if your web is really important to you, and this is where we made a commitment that this was going to be a very important part of what we do, and considered it an additional campus, as if hundreds of people were attending at another location all the time. And therefore, it had the importance of, well, if the house sound is this good, the web sound has to be that good.
Right.
And campus sound has to be. And so, depending on what your mission and purpose is for your church online experience, right now it may be for you the only experience that all of your church attenders are having. So you want quality, but monitor it before it goes to the web and after it goes to the web. I had guys that had a single, like we have our earphones on, they had one in one ear and one in the other, and they set one down and then Mark programmed a switch where you could switch it, and one was web and the other one was pre-web.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he did a great job and does a great job, and that's so important. And during this pandemic, and again, I'll mention pandemic because almost every podcast we've done now since March has had something to do with the pandemic. And as you just mentioned, more and more people are watching online, and that's not going to change. That's going to continue to grow even after this pandemic subsides, at least to some degree. And we're still a long ways away from that. But yeah, very good points there. Absolutely. So it's attention to details. And it may sound a little overwhelming to you listening to this podcast if you haven't done it, but it's doable, and it's not really that hard once you start getting your hands in it and start getting a little bit of practice. And let me just say, practice, again, it's really good to be able to do some of this stuff. Hopefully your church has some kind of a run through before you start to go live. Hopefully you've got some kind of testing. If you're meeting and your band is up there doing something, your sound guys, including the people running the internet, running the live stream, they need to be a part of the rehearsals, the time before you stream. There needs to be audio checks. And it's not just music, it's also the speakers. And so that's one of the things that, again, you guys are really good at when I was on staff, and that is check and check and check again. Let's do an audio check. Let's do a test, get the guy up there, and if you're not doing any kind of audio checks before you go live, and that just includes even a regular service on ground, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble because, if you're not if you don't have it mixed right, even in the house, it's going to be feedback, and people are going to be. It's not going to be a good experience,
Or I can't tell you how many times, Phil, I've been checking in on a service time and a weekend. We check in on all of our churches, make sure everything's working, and I'll check in on a church, and they have no sound, and nobody's monitoring it, and they don't know they don't have sound. Right. So then you go to the chat for the church, and people are saying, I can't hear. So you need to have good communication tools directly to the sound guy so that you guys can be troubleshooting and make sure you have not just some sound, but quality sound on your stream.
Right. Absolutely. And again, these things are very doable. They might be a little bit out of the box for some people here listening to this podcast, but it's really not hard to do. You just need to set some things up. All right. So let's move on. We're running out of time. One of the points I have in the notes here when it comes to really, making audio a priority is one of the struggles that many churches have is background noise. Background noise. Yeah. Kind of like what I have here in the office right now with my air conditioning kicking in and out and my water fountain and whatever else happens. I haven't heard your dog this time, but I hope the dog's okay.
Not yet, but if they hear something, you'll hear them for sure.
So, background noise, it's worth looking into this and, reviewing what you hear. And a lot of times it's like anything else, you get used to things and you don't really hear it. Other people hear it. You know what I'm saying? You're used to the AC kicking in, you're used to the stage, people walking on the stage, and it might be, I don't know, if you have a wood stage and it creaks or something, or other noises that happen, you might be used to it, but it's annoying to some new people. So look at your background noise, listen to it, close the windows, put down carpet, fix the squeaking doors that might be close to the stage or something that are hearing on your that people are hearing on your stream. Look into that. Keep an eye on it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Phil. No, there's a lot of background noise that your ears won't necessarily pick up.
Yeah.
So this goes back to what Phil said about practice and turning it on and checking it and streaming it. Stream your empty room when everything's running and listen for what you can hear. That's where some of the popping and clicking and hissing that you're getting electronically from a bad connection or whatever, or sometimes you don't even notice an AC and it'll come on and it'll hum so loud that you can hardly hear what's going on. It's drowning out what's going on in the room. A lot of ambient noises. Another way to do that would be just record with your phone. Walk around and record with your phone, and then go back and listen to what you can hear in that room. You'll be shocked sometimes at all the sounds, that what appears to be a quiet room isn't really as quiet as you think it is.
That's right. Well, I've done that with doing just even some of the help videos we have, for streaming church. And I know you know the same thing. You do them too. And, I'll do a help video and think, oh, okay, I think that's good. I think it'll good. Well, let's listen to it. And then I hear something that's just as annoying in the background. And it could be my water fountain here that's just kind of running, or it might be the dog barking. I have my office out of my home here and there's a dog next door. And so, it could be anything. I mean, good point, Mike. Check for these sounds, even have maybe an independent ear once in a while, listen, because again, we get used to what we get used to, and we developed, we used to call it blind spots. We don't always see things because we're so used to seeing this. We see the stain on the carpet and we're just so used to it, we don't see it anymore, but new people see the stain. Well, it's the same way with your ears. You hear things all the time and you just get used to it. And then somebody else goes, oh my gosh, that's so annoying. Like, oh, I guess it is. All right. So again, that's pretty much it for the notes here. Figure out a way to muffle the sound, figure out a way to muffle the background sound. There's ways you can do that. There's just
carpet, acoustic tiles. There's so many things you can do to quiet your environment.
Get creative.
Yep.
I get creative. I've hung some sound suppressing stuff here in my office a little bit to try to eliminate some of the echo. I don't know. I may need to do more, but little things like that. You can do things that will help muffle that sound and make it a good experience. So that's pretty much it. If we can help you with this in any way, support at streamingchurch.tv. Streamingchurch.tv. You can chat with us. We're the originals, and we do what we do because we love churches, and that's our goal, is to help churches use technology, and especially the area of streaming video. So, all right, Michael, we're done. I appreciate your input.
You bet. Always a pleasure, Phil. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Michael Gray with us today. Steve Lacy should be back with us next time. I'm Phil Thompson. Please take care of yourselves during this time, every time, but especially during this time in our country and in our world. We want to keep you around here, and we want to be able to help you as we can. You've been listening to the Church Solutions Podcast. We'll catch you again next time. Take care.